I think at this point it might be worthwhile to talk about what guys do wrong when meeting and interacting with women that they're attracted to. Of course, guys do so many boneheaded, creepy, and obnoxious things that it won't be possible to cover them all. I'm going to give my listeners some credit and assume that I don't need to talk about really stupid stuff. I'll focus on the more common kinds of mistakes that even nice, normal, and sane guys make. In my opinion, the number one mistake guys make when it comes to approaching women is not approaching women. Ultimately, I would even say that this is the root of every other mistake that guys make. If you don't have experience approaching women, you're going to be nervous and awkward. And that's usually going to result in the woman perceiving you as lacking confidence, which makes you appear unattractive to her, because women are attracted to confident men. Also, if you're nervous and awkward talking to her, then clearly you don't have much experience with women. To her, this will imply that you're not very attractive to other women. And if other women aren't attracted to you, why should she be? Women generally are attracted to men who other women are attracted to. If you were a man who other women were attracted to, you would be comfortable talking to her and expressing your interest in her, because you would be used to being with beautiful women. The fact that you project nervousness tells her that you expect her to reject you. If you were the kind of man who usually dates women like her, then why would you expect her to reject you? But you clearly expect her to reject you, so clearly you're not the kind of man who usually dates women like her. Clearly you're a low-status male, and she's attracted to high-status males. This may seem like a weird sort of logic, but experience has taught me that this is more or less how women think. I'm not saying that they are consciously thinking this, but this is basically what their female intuition tells them. She doesn't really know you. You're just some random guy who approached her and is trying to hit on her. So her first instantaneous impression and intuitive reaction to you is what she's going to go off of. I'm sure everyone can see the catch-22 here. If you're not used to approaching attractive women, you're going to be nervous and awkward, which is going to make you appear unattractive, which is going to result in you getting rejected, which is going to make you more nervous about approaching. But at the same time, the only way you're going to become confident is to become more experienced at approaching and interacting with attractive women. So yes, it's difficult in the beginning. This is why most guys never learn to approach attractive women. They lack courage. And men who lack courage are not attractive to women. Women are attracted to real men. And real men have courage. I want to emphasize this point. Courage is masculine. A real man has courage. A man who demonstrates courage is going to be more attractive to women. The simple fact that you had the courage to approach her, in spite of the fact that you're clearly extremely nervous and afraid of being rejected, at least demonstrates to her, in a direct and undeniable way, that you are a man of courage. And even if only at a deep, unconscious level, she will recognize this and feel at least a certain degree of attraction towards you. It's very likely she will still reject you, especially if you're nervous and awkward in your approach. So I'm definitely not saying that simply having the courage to approach her guarantees that she'll be attracted to you or that she won't reject you. What I'm saying is that courage is very attractive to women, and that simply by approaching her directly in the way I advocate, you demonstrate to her that you possess a very attractive masculine quality. Indirect approaches do not do this. And this is one of several reasons why I advocate direct approaches, especially when you're first learning to approach women. It forces you to develop courage, and it allows you to make a powerful first impression by demonstrating a highly attractive and masculine quality to her simply by the way you approach her. As you gain experience, you'll become less nervous and awkward. Or at the very least, you'll learn to appear less nervous and awkward. You'll begin to display more confidence. And confidence is another highly attractive and masculine quality that all women are attracted to. It also gives you a subtle but direct form of social proof, because your confident behavior implies that you're comfortable talking to women like her, and this implies that you're used to dating women like her, or possibly even more attractive women. And so obviously, other women are attracted to you. You are an attractive man. And remember, women tend to be attracted to men who other women are attracted to. This is why, as everyone knows, guys who are married or in a relationship tend to be more desirable to women. And these are all reasons why the sort of direct approach I teach is so effective. Within just the first few seconds of approaching her, you've demonstrated to her in a very direct way that you are a man who has courage and confidence, and that you're the sort of man who dates women like her, and who other women like her are attracted to. The kind of indirect approach that many pickup artists teach, which I discussed in part 1, attempts to do this over the course of a long, complex, multi-step process. I accomplished this in a few seconds, simply by being direct and natural. Admittedly, it does take some time to develop this, but I honestly think it takes even longer to develop the sort of indirect, artificial game that a lot of so-called pickup artists teach. Either way, you're going to be really nervous about approaching when you first start. And either way, you're going to face quite a bit of rejection before you start to become more successful. So why not go direct and natural? Looking back, I wish I had never wasted any time on indirect methods and artificial techniques. Later, I will talk about specific situations where I think indirect approaches may be better, and the kinds of indirect approaches that I recommend. But first, let me finish talking about common mistakes guys make, and then I'll get on to how to do a direct, natural approach properly and effectively. And I'm giving you my knowledge and experience for free. A lot of guys wouldn't do that. They would make you pay to download their ebook or attend their seminar. I only ask that if you find this information helpful, you would make a donation to show your appreciation. I believe this is extremely valuable information. That's why I'm sharing it. But getting back to common mistakes, I consider one of the next most common mistakes to be approaching women you're not really attracted to. The first mistake is not approaching women. The second mistake is approaching unattractive women. By that, I only mean women who are unattractive to you. I'm not making any kind of absolute value judgment on anyone. Like I said in part 1, this is what most players do. And by players, I mean men who aren't good with women. I mean men who aren't confident enough to approach the women they're really attracted to. And so they approach women who they see as easy. Of course, since they're not really attracted to these women, they don't value them. They take advantage of them. They use them. They treat them badly. And they cause them to form negative opinions of men in general, and to see men as only wanting to use women for sex, or as being afraid of commitment. This hurts other men as well as women. You should only approach women who you are extremely attracted to. And you should only date and have relationships with women who you actually value. Do not approach women who you see as having lower value or status. Again, as I said in the last video, I don't view one person as having less intrinsic worth than another person simply because they have less wealth or lower social status or are less physically attractive according to the ideal beauty standards that society judges them by. But the Pythagorean philosophy teaches that men and women should seek someone of similar socioeconomic status, or someone who is more or less on the same level as they are in terms of attractiveness or sexual market value. Pythagoras was against marrying up or marrying down. There are a few reasons for this. I've already given one. If you marry down or date down, you're showing a lack of courage. Courage is a virtue. So to lack courage or to fail to cultivate the virtue of courage, is to be unvirtuous. We should strive to cultivate virtue within ourselves and to create a more virtuous society. In an unvirtuous society, men are players and women are hypergamous. In other words, men use lower status women for sex, and women use higher status men to climb the socioeconomic ladder, rather than becoming successful themselves through their own merits. I talked about this some in my last video, and I also talked about it in my video, Women Are Spiders, so there's no need to spend a lot of time on it here. But one of the reasons Pythagoras advises men not to try to marry up is that the woman will usually end up dominating the man. He's speaking primarily in terms of marrying a woman from a higher socioeconomic class, but I think the same logic applies to either men or women who marry or date out of their league, or who get into relationships with someone who has higher status, or who is more attractive in some way, whatever that might mean. Like I said, an exceptionally beautiful woman will have high status, simply by virtue of her exceptional beauty. It's fine if you think that's unfair, but that's the way it is. There are a number of different factors that could contribute to or detract from a person's status, whether they're male or female. If your perceived status is lower than hers, it's very likely that she will eventually trade up, or in other words, leave you for a man whose status is equal to or slightly higher than her own. This is simply human nature. Men do it too. But if she stays with you, she will probably end up dominating and controlling you, because she realizes that she has leverage over you. She has power over you. She has the power in the relationship because she has higher value. So she will not submit to you. And the Pythagorean view, and the biblical Christian view, and my view, is that in a relationship or in a marriage, the woman should be submissive to the man, and the man should be the head of the relationship. This is simply what God or nature has ordained. You can object that this is old-fashioned and sexist, but it's the way it is. And if the woman refuses to submit to the man, the relationship doesn't work. And so in addition to not pursuing a woman who is too far out of your league, you should also obviously not have anything to do with a feminist. But the truth is, the feminine responds to the masculine. If you're a man who is in touch with his authentic masculine nature, your woman will naturally submit to you. Every woman wants to submit to a man. At least every attractive woman does. And you don't want to be with an unattractive woman. Like I said in part 1, the same qualities that make a man masculine also make him attractive to women. Inversely, the same qualities that make a woman feminine also make her attractive to men. Submissiveness is feminine. And so women who are feminine, in other words, attractive women, are submissive. She may not be submissive in general. Maybe she's the boss at her job, but with her man, she will be submissive. Conversely, as a man, maybe you're at the bottom of the totem pole at your job, but with your woman, you will be dominant. You might have a female boss, and you should respect her just like you would respect your male boss. I'm not saying that women should be submissive to men in general. I'm saying that in a marriage or in a romantic sexual relationship, the woman should submit to the man. And almost every woman will naturally submit to her man if he radiates masculine energy. The main exception to this will be if she's too far out of his league, or if she's too high above him in terms of status. Like I said in the last video, I've dated quite a few girls who a lot of people would say were out of my league. Obviously, it's kind of subjective to a certain extent. And you can marry or date someone who has a slightly higher or lower value than you do within a certain range, and it will probably be fine. Also keep in mind that value is not static. If a man marries young, He may climb the socioeconomic ladder as he gets older, while his wife's value will probably decrease as she gets older and her youthful beauty fades. Maybe you think that isn't fair, but it's the way it is. Men's value tends to increase with age, while women's value tends to decrease with age. Older women might not like that, but neither do younger men, who can't get a date because all the young women are going out with older men who are more successful and financially stable. You could argue about whether women or men have it better or worse, but there is at least one advantage to being a young man that I can tell you. If you're a woman who's past 30, you're obviously not getting any younger. You know it, and men know it. You're probably only going to become less beautiful over time. But if you're a man who's under 30, and you have a low-income job and live with your parents, it's very likely that your value will increase quite a bit over the next several years. And a lot of women will be willing to gamble on that, especially if you demonstrate that you have attractive qualities such as courage and confidence, which, in addition to making you more masculine and therefore more attractive to women, also make you more likely to succeed in pretty much any career. And I think this is why I was able to date so many extremely attractive women when I was younger, even when I was unemployed and living at home, or flat broke and living in a low-income apartment in a bad part of town. And so someone might say that this doesn't really disprove that females are hypergamous by nature, but simply that some of them are willing to gamble on a more long-term investment strategy, like an investor who will buy a stock that isn't doing well at the moment, as long as he has good reason to believe that the value of the stock will go up in the future. And again, when you approach women directly, you demonstrate courage and confidence, which are qualities that make you likely to become successful. So you're demonstrating to her that you're probably a sound investment, even if you don't seem to have a lot to offer right now. So if you have a low-paying job, or if you live in a crappy apartment with roommates, or even if you're unemployed and living in your mom's basement, do not use that as an excuse to not approach attractive women. I can tell you from personal experience that a lot of them will still be attracted to you and willing to date you. Do not feel the need to lie to them or hide your job situation or living situation from them. Be honest. It really isn't going to hurt you as much as you might think. There are going to be some women who won't want to date you because of your situation, but you'd be surprised how many of them just won't care. And a lot of it is all how you frame it. For example, there's a difference between a guy who is still living with his parents because he's too lazy to go out and get a job, and a guy who moved back in with his parents while he finishes his degree or so that he can save up for a down payment on a house. But whatever you do, do not put off talking to women until after you finish your degree or get a good job or move out of your parents' house or your crappy apartment. And don't think that until your situation changes, you have to settle for women you're not attracted to because you don't believe you're good enough to go for the women you are attracted to. The first mistake is not approaching women. The second mistake is not approaching the women you're really attracted to. But along with that, also have realistic standards. Don't settle, go after what you really want, but don't chase women who are too far out of your league either. Of course, you may not really have a sense of whether a woman is out of your league or not unless you approach a lot of women. If you're afraid to approach women, you'll probably tend to tell yourself that the women you're attracted to are out of your league simply as an excuse not to approach them. Once you start approaching women, but still aren't really good at it, you might start to think that the women you're approaching are out of your league simply because a lot of them are rejecting you. But they're not necessarily rejecting you because they're out of your league. They're probably rejecting you because you haven't gotten good at approaching them yet. As you gain more experience and confidence, you'll probably realize that a lot of the women you thought were out of your league actually aren't. And once you've dated several really attractive women, You'll be a lot more confident when you approach attractive women because you'll know that she isn't out of your league and that you've dated women like her before. So the third mistake is being fake or putting on some kind of act. Just be yourself. It takes courage to be yourself and make yourself vulnerable. If you approach a woman with some kind of cheesy pickup line or some kind of gimmick, this protects your ego somewhat, because then you feel like she's not rejecting you, she's just rejecting your cheesy pickup line or gimmick. And she will reject your cheesy pickup line or gimmick. But maybe in a way that seems to make the rejection feel less personal. Of course, really, she is still rejecting you personally. She's rejecting you because you're the sort of guy who lacks the courage and confidence to approach her directly and authentically. She's rejecting you because you've shown her that you're the kind of guy who's afraid to be himself and who feels the need to hide behind some kind of line or opener or technique or gimmick. She's rejecting you because you're not a real man. If you approach her like a real man and you still get rejected, at least you didn't get rejected for not being a real man. And even when you do get rejected, even though that's going to sting at first, you can still exit gracefully and walk away feeling really good about yourself for being a real man who has the courage to be yourself and go after what you really want. When you act with courage, and when you have the courage to be authentic, you just can't help but feel really good about yourself. Once you realize that even when you get rejected, you can still feel really great about the fact that you had the courage to be authentic and go after what you want, you'll find that you're not as afraid of being rejected, which makes you less nervous, which makes you appear more confident and relaxed, which makes you less likely to be rejected. But getting rejected is part of getting there. Also, once you get rejected a few times and see that rejection is really no big deal, your fear of rejection starts to go away. You'll probably always have a little bit of nervousness or anxiety about talking to an attractive woman. Just like an experienced performer probably still gets a little stage fright when he's about to go on stage. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. When you're talking to an attractive woman and you're just a little bit nervous, it's a subtle compliment. Because the fact that you feel a little bit nervous talking to her tells her that you think she's really attractive. It can also make you seem more charming. A couple of times I've even sort of called it out. One time, I approached a girl, and as soon as I tried to talk to her, I got all tongue-tied. I could feel my face blush bright red, and I just smiled real big because I actually thought it was pretty funny in a slightly embarrassing sort of way. And I think I said something along the lines of, "I'm sorry, I'm getting all tongue-tied. I guess I'm just a little nervous about coming over to talk to you because I think you look absolutely gorgeous. But I just had to come over and say hi and introduce myself and find out if you're single." After I said that, she smiled and instantly warmed up to me. And that helped me to relax and feel less nervous. And the interaction went pretty well after that. Another time, I was talking to a girl and I just completely blanked out and couldn't think of anything to say after the first thing I said to her. So there was an awkward silence. And you really don't want an awkward silence, especially early on in the interaction, because it's uncomfortable. And obviously you don't want to make her feel uncomfortable. So I played it off in kind of a similar way, basically by calling it out. I think I said something like, "I'm sorry, it's just that you're so beautiful you made my mind go completely blank. To tell the truth, I didn't really plan out what I was going to say before I came over here. I just saw you and I knew I had to come talk to you." Again, she smiled and seemed to warm up to me. And so I was able to recover from the awkward silence and have a pleasant interaction with her. And I think that came across as very charming. Even though just kind of saying it in the video out of context, maybe it comes across as a little bit corny because I'm saying it in more of a scripted kind of way right now, instead of being natural and spontaneous in a live social context. But the point I'm trying to make is that if I wasn't nervous about talking to her, that wouldn't have happened. Of course, if you just memorize that line and try to use it, it'll probably come across as scripted and artificial, and it won't have the same effect. It would seem inauthentic, and she'll wonder if you say that to every girl. And it'll probably come across as cheesy. But if you remember the basic idea of these lines, and use the same basic conversational technique, if you're ever in a situation where you get tongue-tied on an approach, or where your mind goes blank right after an approach, you'll probably get a warm reaction from it, because it's authentic. It's a very sincere compliment, and it's very obvious that you're being genuine. If you just tell a girl that she's beautiful, she may think you're just flattering her. But if you actually get a little tongue-tied when you're talking to her, then obviously you really do think she's stunning. But I think this is especially effective if you also seem confident and relaxed. In the situations I described, I was already pretty good at approaching, and I was pretty relaxed and confident, but I still got a little nervous. It wouldn't have worked the same way if I had approached her nervously and awkwardly, and then delivered that as a scripted line. So again, it isn't about the line. It's not what you say that's important. The important thing about those interactions is that I demonstrated courage and confidence, but also authenticity and vulnerability. And women find that charming. That's what I mean by being yourself and not hiding behind some kind of line or gimmick. If you try to memorize those lines and use them as a gimmick, then you're not being authentic. You're hiding behind a pickup line that you memorized. And then you would come back and leave a comment about how my advice doesn't work. It works. You just have to understand why it works. Again, there's nothing particularly great about those lines. What worked was my courage, confidence, and authenticity. Courage is something you begin building right away, simply by forcing yourself to approach. As you continue to do more approaches, you build your confidence. And as you become more confident, you're going to be able to be more relaxed and comfortable being yourself. And that's when your natural charm and sense of humor is going to start to show. And that's when you're going to start getting really good with women. That's when women are going to start being really attracted to you. Within just a few seconds of meeting you, she'll realize that not only do you have courage and confidence, but you're also a very real and genuine guy who's really charming and has a great sense of humor. By this time, you'll also have gotten better at figuring out what kinds of girls you're really attracted to and what kinds of girls are attracted to you. In other words, you'll be able to see a girl and know if she's your type. You're just going to figure this out by approaching a lot of girls. Unless you have a lot of experience with women, you're not going to really know what your type is. But once you've figured out your type and you're good at approaching, you're not going to get rejected nearly as much. You will still get rejected, but it'll mostly be because she honestly has a boyfriend, or she just broke up and she's not ready to start dating again, or something like that. Not every girl is single and looking to meet someone, but quite a few of them are. And even the ones that aren't are usually still really flattered that you were interested in them. As long as you approach them right, they'll probably smile and be really nice. It'll make their day. When they tell you they have a boyfriend, they may even sound really disappointed about it, as if they wish they didn't. My advice is that if a girl tells you that she's in a relationship, you should always respect that and not be pushy. But sometimes she'll tell you that, but you'll get the feeling that she's still open to talking to you. If so, there's not necessarily anything wrong with talking to her. One time I was at a mall, and this super gorgeous girl walked by. I found out later she was a model, and she definitely looked like one. So when I caught up to her, I did my usual approach, and I felt like she was attracted to me. By the way, just because a girl is attracted to you doesn't mean she's not still going to be a little bit on guard. She may see you as a very attractive stranger, but you are still a stranger, and it's probably going to take her a couple of minutes to warm up to you, even if you approach her right. That's normal. Just be aware of that. Some guys think that a girl is rejecting them just because she doesn't instantly open up and act flirtatious with them. The more you approach women, the better you'll get at reading them and recognizing whether you're making her uncomfortable or whether she's attracted to you but just feeling a little bit shy. Remember, just like approaching an attractive woman makes you nervous, being approached by an attractive guy makes her nervous. Again, doing a lot of approaches is the key. Simply doing approaches will teach you everything you need to know. As someone who's done a lot of approaches, I'm just trying to give you some advice and help you avoid some of the mistakes I've made and share a few things I've learned that will help you get there a little faster and easier. But anyway, when I caught up to her, she was in a bookstore. I didn't do the nonsense that a lot of guys would do where they pretend to be looking for a book on the aisle she's on and then hope to start a conversation with her using some kind of indirect situational approach. I just did my standard direct approach. A few seconds in, she told me she had a boyfriend, but she seemed like she was still open to me talking to her. She had very open body language, and she was being friendly, and we were having a pleasant interaction. In the bookstore, there was a coffee shop. I always liked bookstores with coffee shops because it makes it easy to have kind of an instant date with the girl you meet at the bookstore. I said something along the lines of, "Well, I think I'm going to go over there and get some coffee. I know you have a boyfriend and everything, but you seem like a really cool person, so if you want to join me and just talk for a little bit, I'd enjoy your company. Just to hang out and have a friendly conversation. I'm not trying to pick you up or anything." And I genuinely meant that. She seemed cool. I liked her and wanted to hang out with her and get to know her a little bit more, even if I knew it wasn't going to go anywhere. She seemed like someone who I would just enjoy her company. She agreed, and so we had coffee. We talked for a little over an hour, and we really seemed to connect. I didn't want to be pushy, since she had a boyfriend, so I didn't ask for her number or anything, but I gave her my Facebook info in case she ever wanted to message me. I didn't think she would. I only gave it to her to be polite. But to my surprise, she did actually message me the next day, and eventually we ended up dating for a while. So you shouldn't always take it as rejection if a girl tells you she has a boyfriend. Usually it is her way of rejecting you, especially in the beginning when you're not really good. But that's not always the case. Sometimes she has a boyfriend, but it isn't serious. Or maybe she's been thinking about breaking up with him anyway. Maybe she likes him, but she doesn't really love him or see herself marrying him. So she's open to getting to know someone else if she meets a really great guy. You never know. But again, I also advise you to be respectful if she's in a relationship. If you connect with her, you can keep in touch if she wants to, but don't be a stalker, obviously. And maybe something will come of it eventually. But don't be aggressive about it. Unless she seems to want to keep it going, just let it go. I think I'll end there for now, but I still have a lot more to say. So if you like this and would like to hear more of my thoughts, experiences, and insights on the topic of approaching and attracting women, hit the thumbs up button to let me know that you like this topic and want to hear more, and maybe I'll make a part 3 and 4. Also, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned. Peace.